missing. Ultimate sandbag, but there's the ice.
No, and she shakes her head! Jessica Robinson advances to the final!
The World Championship is over and we're all basically just sitting around and waiting for the Forbidden and Limited list to drop. There's a lot of options of things that could happen, but instead of me just getting flamed in the comments for my takes, why don't we turn to your takes, your hottest Banlist predictions. But first, if you want to support me and the channel, use my affiliate links in the description below, and you can also become a YouTube member to get early access to deck lists, exclusive Discord access, and much more. Before we begin, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel as always, and this time, again, I turned to you. I always have convoluted Banlist predictions, Forbidden and Limited list takes, and not all the time you guys agree with me, so I thought that maybe if you guys gave the predictions, we'll have a more civilized discussion this time, and also maybe hearing some funny takes along the way. At That Bloody Skelly says, Baron should be banned. I've mentioned this take actually on my personal Twitter a lot of times, mainly in that one famous thread that I wanted to ban Access Code and Baron de Fleur, and I think a lot of people tend to either agree with this completely or just say that I'm absolutely nuts and want to neuter the game altogether. I think that Baron de Fleur is probably one of the strongest cards in the game right now. The fact that you can just go into an Omni Negate that has a pop each turn and can also revive from the graveyard and recycle itself back into the deck is not something that is very common in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. The fact that it's easier than ever to bring out a Baron in pretty much any deck that is not locked out of the extra deck and could run tuners, I think that Baron is bannable, which is different than should be banned because I think it has some good uses for the game. But again, right now, in the state that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in, it is so easy to just get that Omni Negate and pop onto the board that sometimes it feels that for some decks, it's really hard to play against. Card Destruction, Morphing Jar, and Cyber Jar to 3, please, says Garrett the Q. I think that there are a few things to unpack here. I think Morphing Jar and Cyber Jar are sort of like in their own corner, even though Cyber Jar and I believe Morphing Jar as well is limited at the moment. I think Card Destruction has a lot more destructive applications right now. Discarding your entire hand and drawing 5 additional cards or however many you have in your hand, but also forcing your opponent to do the same thing at 3 is basically equivalent to digging 15 cards into your deck, which I think is absolutely crazy. I think Fiber Jar and Morphing Jar right now, flip effect monsters, even if they said flip effect, you win the game, it's going to be hard to play them. I think Card Destruction is... it's a pretty wild take. Ban Rocket Tracer and Fallen of Albaz. Oscar, buddy, why so personal? I'm not going to take this too seriously. I think that Rocket Tracer is a very good card. I think Dragon Link could be hit in other ways. We're going to discuss that later. But Fallen of Albaz, you guys need to understand. Fallen of Albaz, also Alistair the Invoker. Banning those cards means that you essentially ban almost, every other fusion or card that is related to them. Kid Colossus was banned, and it is a named fusion material, and Tearlament's found a way to play around that, but when you're talking about a whole strategy that revolves around one card and the ability to fusion summon it, maybe, limiting branded fusion or hitting branded in another way could be a better option. Red Reboot 2-1 says the Ashen Hunter 2. I think that Red Reboot is what you would call a necessary evil in some formats, but when we're looking at it right now through the lens of the current format, Red Reboot against things like Eradicator Virus would be exceptionally strong, but the fact is that Red Reboot kills entire strategies. It's basically an Azathoth for the turn against trap decks, and I think it's unfair. I think Red Reboot could have said that specific trap needs to be flipped down and cannot be activated again, but shutting off your entire back row for the turn is really difficult. I think if we're looking at Eradicator Virus, that card should be banned, but maybe Red Reboot should still stay on the forbidden list. Fiber Jar could come back to 1. I think this is, Ryan, I'm sorry, but I think that Konami specifically, the way Konami looks at cards like Fiber Jar is just a logistical nightmare, I think. When they banned Mystic Mine, one of my thoughts initially was that they wanted to ban it mostly because the bad PR and the way games are handled in tournaments that are actually streamed. When you look at a tournament where both players just pass on turn to each other because of Mystic Mine, it's just a bad look. It's just a bad look for the game. I think Fiber Jar is the same thing, even though you would likely not resolve this card a lot. But I think the game state that it creates is extremely destructive. Either ban Droll or semi-limit Gamma and Call By. I think this is a really important discussion to have. Sven Nacho mentions Droll and Gamma in the same sentence. Why are we talking about those two together? So what Konami did is allow for Droll to roam free in the metagame at 3. This card single-handedly can shut off your entire deck once you add a card to your hand. A lot of combo decks rely on adding cards and continuing that cycle from the deck, but Droll just shuts it off. It's an extremely toxic and strong floodgate. But the way we could have battled that was things like Cyframe Gear Gamma that was just limited. This was a weird choice out of Konami to go closer to the OCG by banning Gamma, even though Gamma is exceptionally strong. Droll is bad for the game, but again, a necessary evil against some decks that can just go absolutely wild and unbreakable boards. And Gamma is one, I don't know, I think it feels there's some kind of disconnect there, and I think Nacho is completely right. Delinquent Duo could come back to 1 and it wouldn't do anything. So if you're relatively new to the game, you've never encountered Delinquent Duo. You can pay 1000 life points, randomly discard one card from your opponent's hand, and then they discard a card of their choice from the hand if they have cards in the hand still. I think on one hand, you can say, well, it could activate effects. It could activate effects of Tearlaments, Despian Tragedy, anything that triggers when it's discarded, specifically, Dark World, wouldn't mind you discarding cards out of their hand. If you start off with Delinquent Duo and then go through a 1 or 2 card combo, it's too strong for your opponent to start only with 4 cards in hand. This is why things like Omega that rip 1 card out of your opponent's hand and actually comes back are limited. I think ripping card out of your opponent's hand is very strong, and I don't think we need a generic Delinquent Duo that would be shoved into any deck going first to just rip cards out of your opponent's hand. And lastly, we have Nyalta Hiatus, the VTuber, saying Colossus could come back to 1. I kind of agree. So I think that Colossus is not the worst thing. I think we definitely don't need more floodgates in the game, but think about it this way. It's going to be really hard to just throw in Colossus into a deck. You need some sort of strategy behind it. You need to activate Thunder Monster's effects in the hand, and you're not going to be able to do that consistently if you don't run a big enough engine. Thunder Dragons are like, okay, maybe with Bestials and Dragon Link they could become much more powerful, but again, if Colossus is on the board, does it actually matter? When you envision a board, your opponent's board, does it bother you that much that Colossus is there? I don't know, I want to hear your thoughts about Colossus specifically. So let me know what are your hottest ban list predictions or takes in the comments below. Let me know what do you think about some of these hot takes over from Twitter. Follow me there, like this video, and subscribe. If you want to support the channel even further, you can join as a member, get early access to all of my exclusive deck lists over on our Discord server. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this one. Leave a comment down below. I want to hear what you think. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.